Good morning. We're going to give it just a moment or two while we allow our attendees to join our meeting today. So give us just a couple of seconds here, please. All right. Good morning. My name is Paul Rattacco, and I am the chair of the Technology Committee for the Chautauqua Property Owners Association. Welcome to our second CPOA virtual Porch Chat of the summer 2020 season. I'm pleased today that we have the Chautauqua County Tax Assessor, Kevin Okerlund. Before we begin, I wish to outline some of the procedures for this Porch Chat. First, and most important, this virtual Porch Chat will be recorded and made available on the new CPOA interactive platform. In today's chat, we will be engaging our participant in a one-on-one format regarding assessments and other property tax issues. They don't have cameras, so he will be on the phone today, so you'll hear him, but you won't see him today. Time permitting, we will move, after we're done with the assessor, time permitting, we will move to some issues facing property owners who rent. Finally, today we will entertain live questions. You can type your questions in using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We will also have a poll a bit later during this session. This poll will be anonymous, but we ask you to share your concern regarding your ability to pay your property taxes. Finally, a couple of announcements. First, we encourage you to join the CPOA platform at www.thecpoa.org. Additionally, we are happy to announce that the Women's Club group is now live. Feel free to access their group through the platform. We welcome the Women's Club to our platform. Finally, please remember to donate your potluck fee to the CPOA. We will share the funds collected with a local food pantry. Click on the donations button on our platform at www.thecpoa.org. I now wish to introduce Richard Parlato, who will be leading the conversation today. Richard is the chair of the CPOA Property Owners Who Rent Committee. He has been very active in the CPOA, and I personally wish to thank him for his tireless efforts working on the Technology Committee, helping ensure the success of our new platform. He has been an essential part of the work the CPOA has been doing to meet and exceed the property owners' expectations regarding improved communication and leadership here at Chautauqua. Richard?
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much for that introduction. And my feeling about working with you is the same. The team effort that we've done to get this platform to where it is an exceptional effort, and we did a great job. Thank you very much. Kevin, we've invited Kevin, as you know, to talk to us today. And Kevin, I would like you to talk to us a little bit about yourself and your background, if you will, and
sure.
Let's do an introduction.
Well, I'm currently the assessor of the city of Jamestown and 10 other municipalities in Chautauqua County. I've been in the assessment profession for 30 years. I have the Institute of Assessing Officers professional designation, which is the highest designation you can get in New York State. Have done multiple revals over the 30 years. We just finished one up in the town of Ellicott this year, it was a very complicated reval with a huge commercial base and multiple villages, and has not been done since 2009. And so that pretty much covers it.
Right. Well, thank you very much. Can you tell us a little bit more about the process, the assessing process, and the reevaluation that has been planned for our town, and whether or not it is state mandated or is it locally mandated?
To answer that question, is locally mandated. The state recommends that you do one every 4 to 6 years. They'd like to see an annual reassessment process set up, some type of either 4 years, 5 years. They would really like to see it, but it is locally mandated. The town itself can decide whether or not to do one. I mean, we have a couple of communities in Chautauqua County that have not done, one of them has not done a reval since 1974, and their current equalization rate is down around 17.5%. So obviously not doing it that long, they've got a lot of inequities in the town. I mean, my personal belief is the reason for doing revals is just to maintain equity in assessment. That is, that everybody is paying their fair share. And over time, when you don't do revals, you have, lakefronts may go up more than town outside. Village may go up more than the institution. Fact is, I just looked at ratios real quick this morning, and I haven't done my analysis yet, so don't hold me to these numbers. But the Village of Mayville, the current assessed value sales price ratio is about 85%. The Chautauqua institution was running around 95%. So if you use those numbers and we were to do a reval, bringing everything up to market value, that is what you would sell the property for, the Village of Mayville would see a 15% increase, where the Chautauqua institution properties would see approximately 5%. The process is for a reval is we start our analysis right around the end of July, first part of August. We look at ratios, we look at sales that have occurred for land, for commercial, for residential, all types of properties. We take a look. We just look at our sales and we try to figure out, what is the current assessment sales price ratio for each of the neighborhoods. And when we have each of the in most towns, you have multiple neighborhoods. I mean, in the town of Chautauqua, I think we have anywhere between 15 to 20 separate neighborhoods. So we try to analyze each neighborhood to see what that neighborhood is doing. So we're comparing apples to apples. Once we have analyzed it, I start building computer models, taking a look, developing the comp sheets that you would look at during an informal hearing after we've completed the reval. We develop the models, we develop the land tables, and then starting right around October 1st, we get out in the field and we start looking at everything. We sit in front of each property, take a look at the sales that we use to compare it, wrap that up by the 1st of March, and then probably the second week of March, we send out the initial change of assessment notices. From there, people have an opportunity to do what are called informal hearings, and we will sit down in person or over the phone to discuss how we arrived at your value, give you 15 minutes or so to tell us why we're wrong. We provide you with the ability to provide your own evidence. We go through the informal hearing process. We send out a next batch of notices right around the last week of April. If you disagree with after the informal hearing, you still have the process of going through the Board of Assessment review hearings the fourth Wednesday in May. And that's the formal Board of Assessment review grievance process where you come in and you sit down in front of 3 board members and present your evidence, and they have our evidence, and then they make a decision. From there, the roll becomes final July 1st, and the first impact would be school taxes in September.
Okay, thanks. Can you tell us where we are with the reevaluation that was talked about, and is that happening this year?
Right now, it is tentatively planned. Final decision has not been made, but odds are it will happen, yes. I mean, we'll probably make a definitive decision towards the end of July once we take a look at all the numbers.
And since it's locally mandated, is there a way for you to consider moving the dates so that most of the property owners on the grounds at Chautauqua don't show up until the end of June or mid-June? Is there a way?
Oh, no, those dates are mandated by law. Those are our taxable status date, our tentative roll filing date, and our final roll filing date, and our grievance period. And we do we make it as easy as possible. We do the informal hearings, but this year, because of COVID, we actually did them all over the telephone. We actually did all our grievance hearings over the phone, and it worked really well. So we give full opportunity for people to provide evidence that they're not fairly assessed, and we'll have everything online. The whole roll, sales will be online. Anything you need to research your property's value will be available.
Can you talk a little bit about the basis of land values and how that is determined per square foot versus real property? The basis of land value?
Well, land value is looked at basically by sales price. I mean, there are other methods, abstraction, allocation, but I'm not going to get into that. But for the most part, town outside, you've got acres. I mean, the property sells per acres, 50-acre piece, 100-acre piece, 2-acre piece, what have you. In that scenario, you just take a look, and usually you come up with a sliding scale because the economy of scales applies here. The larger the parcel, the lower per acre cost. So we may have sales showing 10-acre parcels selling for $3,000 an acre, where a 100-acre parcel may be selling for $600 an acre. So I just build a scale based off of the sale. So I mean, the first 10 acres may come in at 30,000. 100 acres may come in at 60, 70, 80,000, depending on what they're selling for. Lakefront property is usually on a front foot basis. You know, you may have 100 feet of lakefront selling for $2,000 a front foot. And again, looking at size, you may find out that, you know, 100 feet is selling for $3,000 a front foot, but if you've got 200 feet of lakefront, it may drop down to that $2,000 a front foot, or $1,000 even. So we just take a look at that and we develop a scale based on that. Institution property, 40 by 50 parcels. I can either look at it either by a front foot basis, putting a depth factor in and everything, like a 40 by 50 versus a 40 by 70 lot, or I can look at it on a square foot basis. And what I'll do initially is I will look at both either square footage or front footage and just see what better fits in with the models, what allows the numbers to come in tighter.
Okay. And I guess one of the questions that comes up is how much does the Chautauqua Property Owners Group, what is their relationship to the tax base in the county? What's the value? How much value and percentage of contribution?
Countywide, I have no clue because I don't do the county. I just do 11 of the 26 municipalities. Townwide, I'd have to get those numbers to you, but I think the last time we checked, memory serves me, I think the approximately 50% of the tax base. Again, don't hold me that. I'd have to pull those numbers up, and I can get those numbers for you.
We appreciate that's for the town, right?
Correct.
And could you actually look into the county numbers and give us those numbers also?
No, I do not have access to all the county information for the total assessed value.
Great. Well, thanks for getting back to us on that. Appreciate it. So my last question, and we can open it to other questions from the group, is in light of the COVID-19 issue and the extreme loss of revenue that's happening for people who rent properties, both on the grounds and off the grounds, has the town considered any type of modification to penalties and or payments of penalties for a lack of being able to pay their taxes?
As of now, it's my understanding, no. Again, I do not, that's not handled out of the assessor's office. That's handled by the tax collector. Mm-hmm. And she's pretty much mandated by state law also. I think there's been an extension placed upon them, but again, I do not have any information on that.
Great. Okay, those are the questions that I had at the moment. Paul, do you see any questions coming in?
I mean, as far as, let me jump in with other things. As far as the tax collection aspect, you could give Jim Caflish, the County Real Property Tax Director, a call and just see if the county's implementing any program in the upcoming year.
Okay, let me see, we got some questions coming in. So they're interested in what URL they can go to evaluate property value and assessment. Where can they look that up?
They can go to Chautauqua, CHAUT-assessors.org.
Paul, can you post that on the chat area?
Yes, I will see what I can do.
And that will be updated. We're just in the process of filing our final rolls. So once the final rolls are filed, we will be posting the information on that website.
Okay, next question. Does painting a house or putting on a new roof raise property value?
No, we look at it as maintenance.
Thank you. I'm not, the questions are coming in slow.
That's okay, no problem.
Okay. Or we may not have that many questions. Okay, so we've gotten rid of all the open questions so far. Okay, here we go. Okay. Okay, so the question is, if if property sales go down while COVID-19 continues, is there a possibility that we can appeal the evaluation at that point?
Yeah, you can appeal evaluation every year, and that opportunity always presents itself. And we like to do it, even if we didn't do a reval this upcoming year. I mean, any of the property owners have concern on the value of their property, they're always able to give us a call, especially between January and April. We'll do an informal review. We're always open to that. And if there is a drop in property values and an individual can prove, based on sales, that their property is not worth what it's assessed at, definitely bring it into us. We'll review it.
Okay, great. Next question about another construction question. Would installation of a driveway at the institution qualify for an increase in property value?
No, we usually do not do anything for driveway. Are they talking about putting concrete or blacktop down, or actually putting a driveway in?
Well, the institution has a regulation right now about semi-permeable surfaces only in new driveways. Some people can repave if they're grandfathered in, but if they're putting in, I think she may be speaking to some sort of pavers.
No, we would not do anything with that.
Okay. Just reading through the questions. And is an addition considered maintenance, and will it?
No.
Addition is not considered maintenance.
No, an additional square footage being added would increase the value of your property.
Okay. Next question is about, can you talk about the process beyond appeal? If you have a loss, if you've lost your appeal, what's next? Small claims court or non-resident or a non-resident owner?
The way the next step would be small claims, but the way the law reads, it's got to be owner occupied. And there's two ways of doing about it. You go to small claims, but the law reads it's got to be an owner occupied residence. And I think that they allow, I mean, even though it's a seasonal residence, as long as you're occupying it during that seasonal use, you would qualify for small claims. Otherwise, commercial would have to, anything commercial like a boarding house or anything like that would have to go what's known as a certiorari, Article 78, and you would get an attorney and just basically file a lawsuit against the town.
Okay, thank you. Next question, are assessments always evaluated up?
No, usually, and these numbers seem to hold when you do a reval, and this is applying to taxes. I mean, it's not all assessments go up, but during an average reval, a third of the property owners will see their property taxes actually increase. A third will remain about the same, and a third will actually drop. They don't go up. Let's say a town goes up. Let's say a town's current equalization rate is 80%. So the average increase town-wide is 20%. You take them up 20% to bring them up to that 100%. Some parcels may go up 30%. Some parcels may go up 10%. And there's the difference between what they would pay in taxes right there. But no, to answer the question, not all parcels go up. I mean, the reval we finished in Ellicott, we had quite a few parcels that, due to deferred maintenance on them, the condition and everything actually went down in value.
Okay. Thank you. I think you've already answered this, but I'll ask it again. Any possibility of having tax appeal when Chautauqua people are typically here?
No, those dates are tied in by state law. But again, we make it as easy as possible for people to do it, whether over the telephone, in person. All the information will be online. Have never really had an issue.
Let's see. The question is, give me the timeline slowly so I can write it down. Is this, I'm not sure what I understand that question. Well, do you understand that question? Please give me a
Well, I
timeline.
mean, I'm assuming they're referring to the reval again, and then the informal hearings and such. So for the reval, assuming we started, I will start doing analysis in August. End of July, first part of August. Once we have our analysis done, we'll build our computer models. We'll be out in the field valuing the property probably between October, wrap everything up by March 1st. New notices will be sent out by March 10th. Following that, we'll have informal hearings, usually the month of April. Then we'll go back out, we'll take a look at the properties again that did the informal hearings, the questions that arose, make a new determination of value. Then we will send out new notices right around May 1st, and that's when we actually file our tentative roll, is May 1st. The fourth Wednesday in May in the town of Chautauqua is the Board of Assessment Review, otherwise known as grievance hearings. They are held on that date. Once that is done, decisions are made. We file our final roll July 1st of every year. And then within 30 days of the filing of the final roll, a person who's still not happy with their assessment can file either a small claims or a certiorari.
Okay. Thank you. Question, we have not yet received our change of assessment notice. Does that mean that our property assessment has not changed? Or does it mean that?
No.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we did, since we didn't do any reval this year, the only changes that were made would have been new construction, property owner requests for reviews, splits or apportionments of properties. So no, if you did not receive a change of assessment notice, there was no change in your property.
Next question is, I think you've answered. They were asking, do they have to enter the property? And I think you said no, they look from the outside, correct?
Correct. Unless we have a request from the owner to meet us there at the property and go through it, we will also do that.
Let's see.
And just to give you an example off of that, I mean, we've had several people call and say, well, my house isn't really done. Would you come out and take a look at it? And so a house that we looked at from the road, we valued it complete at full market value. We go out, meet with the owner, and we go through and find out, well, half the house is gutted. So obviously we need to make a change on that. So if you have any concerns like that, don't hesitate to have us come out and look at it.
Are valuations changed when property is recently purchased?
No, that's known as welcome stranger. It's kind of the slang term for it. And we do not change to the new sales price until we reval the whole town or that neighborhood. And when I say that, to give you an example, that we take a look at our numbers every year, and we'll use the institution as an example. Let's say we're following numbers. Most of the town is running right around 100%, but over a 2-year period, we noticed the Chautauqua institution property values have gone up 20%. Sales are just booming down there. We can actually go in and just do those neighborhoods to adjust them to bring to maintain equity with the rest of the town. But those two time frames are the only times we will change to a sales price, at a reval or if we redo a neighborhood. But it has to be the whole neighborhood.
Right. Okay. The next question, I think, pertains to the question prior to this. If the property is renovated, how do you know how much the value of the property has increased? Other than the building inspector going in, how do you determine the value increase?
Well, we get copies of building permits. And we also, I mean, one of the 3 approaches to value is the cost approach to value. Basically, replacement cost new less depreciation plus the land value. So, we take a look at the costs. We also go out on the market and try to find similar homes that have sold. But usually, like if somebody's putting on, an addition on the property, a lot of times we'll just cost that addition out. add it on, and then we'll take a look at the overall value related to the market, just to make sure we're in the ballpark.
Next question, the institution property encompasses what portion of the Chautauqua Lake School District total evaluation?
Again, I'll have to get you that number. I do not have it off the top of my head.
Thank you. Okay, next question. What if a wooden porch is needed because of deterioration? Does that increase the valuation?
It might. Let's say you've got an old porch on there. We've got pictures of it. I mean, it's fallen down. You come in, cost you $5,000 to put a covered porch on. We may attribute $1,000 to the old porch and, add $4,000 difference on that new porch. But yeah, it would add value to your property.
Okay, thank you. Do you coordinate with the building inspector?
He provides us with building permits information every month, but yeah, we talk back if we have questions on property, or if since he's into the properties a lot and he sees the process, we'll ask him questions.
How do kitchen and bathroom renovations affect assessment?
Usually, if somebody improves a kitchen or a bath, depending on what was there prior, that will increase the value.
Does air conditioning add value?
If you're actually putting in central air conditioning units, yeah, it'll add a little bit, not a whole lot.
Let's see. In general, is there is there an advantage to combine adjacent 40 by 50 lots into a single lot, tax lot?
A slight advantage, and I would recommend doing it. And again, you'd have to look at it, but usually the larger the lot, the less, and let's use institution property, the less per front foot value. So if you've got two 40 by 50 lots, and they're assessed for $2,000 a front foot, so 200 grand, or no, 80 grand. I was thinking they're selling for 250 right now, I think. And you combine them together, the larger the parcel is going to bring, it's going to be a little, as a whole, it will save you tax money.
Next question, does a small wooden structure brought onto property or for storage raise value?
Well, like a shed, yes, it would. Even though it's on skids, and we get this question quite a bit, even though it's on skids, it's the intent of the ownership that's looked at, and that is taxable real property.
Looking at the taxes over the last 10 years, some properties seem to have spiked in taxes and then go back down even when there is no sale. What might that be?
Yeah, I guess I'd have to look at the property, but I guess I would say that if there's a couple of revals have been done that year, it could have just been the adjusted valuation of the reval. It may have gone up, may have dropped back down. I don't know. I'd have to look at the property to see.
So somebody have to call and make an appointment for somebody to take a look.
Yeah, and just ask us. We'd be more than happy to take a look at it.
Okay, next question. If Mayville assesses at 85% average and CI properties at 95%, isn't there a basis for a suit or lack of equal protection?
No, not at all. I mean, I guess you could, but you look at the town-wide equalization rate, everything's taken into consideration, all the different neighborhoods, but that's the whole point of doing a reval, because over a period of 4 or 5 years, neighborhoods change. And in this aspect, it looks like the village has changed more than the institution has.
Is there a cap on how much can be included?
On assessments, no, it's market value.
Please explain the difference in evaluations between condos, single-family homes, and multi-family homes.
Single-family homes and multi-family homes are looked at as usually the sales approach to value more than anything. I mean, there's this cost of sales and the income, but 2 and 3 family units are tough to do on the income approach to value. A lot of the buildings in Chautauqua Institution are older buildings, so the cost approach really isn't the most applicable. So we lean most heavily on a sales approach to value, that is looking at other similar properties that have sold. Condominiums under Real Property Tax Law 581 need to be valued, looked at as a whole as an apartment complex. So we just try to find various apartment sales that have occurred. And we also lean on the cost approach. A lot of condos are relatively newer ones where the properties have been renovated or converted. And so we lean on the cost approach to value there also. But they have to be looked at as an apartment building. So a lot of times you'll see, let's say you've got, and I'm just using round numbers here, let's say you've got condos that are selling at $400,000 a unit. You look at them as an apartment sale, their assessment may only be $250,000 or $300,000 a unit. So their assessments are always usually under the sales prices due to that fact.
Okay. Next question. What is the reasoning behind the fact that denial of appeals does not have any rationale or justification provided to the taxpayer?
Not really sure I understand the question, denial of appeals. You have multiple appeal opportunities. You've got the informal process, you've got the Board of Assessment review process, and then you either have the small claims or certiorari process. I mean, it's all dictated by New York state law, so you do have those 3 avenues available.
Okay, well, I may be able to get some clarification on what they're asking, and we'll come back to you on it. If the property is listed incorrectly on the roll as a 6-3, 6-bedroom, 3 baths, and it is a 5-2, should I correct that? Is that material value or to the assessor?
Yeah, you should correct that, because I can give you an example. Like one of the computer models I build, I may add $3,000 per bathroom for each additional bathroom. So I would definitely notify our office and correct the inventory.
Okay, thank you. Can we appeal anytime? For example, what steps would one take tomorrow to begin the process?
Well, right now we're just starting the process, but if if you feel your property's too high now, I mean, we're our roll's final, we're past the appeals processes, so we're filing it July 1st. If you're concerned about the value of your property, we can take a look at it. But right now, because there's a good possibility we're going to be revaluing the town, I would just wait till you get your get your initial change of assessment notice, and then go from there. And there'll be instructions in there exactly what to do.
Yeah, I don't know if I heard you say this or not, but they wanted to clarify whether or not you thought that properties on Chautauqua Institution were booming, sales were booming. I didn't hear that.
I think they're pretty flat right now. I haven't looked at them recently. But again, I just checked the ratio real quick, and it looks like for the last year's worth of sales, they're running at about 95% assessment to sales price.
Okay. I have to read this. Any historic buildings with no heat taxes differently, since can only be used half the year?
Yeah, we'd make it a consideration for having no heat. I mean, obviously, if you're looking at 2 relatively identical buildings and one has a heating system and one doesn't have a heating system, there is a difference in value for the 2.
Okay, readdressing, can you go over again about assessment and sales price?
Assuming they're referring to the ratio, I mean, we look at assessments versus sales prices to find out what ratio, what percentage of the sales price our assessments currently at. And to give you an example, let's say we've got a property that has a $50,000 assessment, and it sells for $100,000, well, it's got a 50% assessed value sales price ratio. So we try to take a look to see where our numbers are. At what percentage are we assessing properties at?
Let's see, is there property continuing on sale? I'll get back to this one. How do you apportion an increase among multiple owners of a condo association with the improvement like a new porch? Is it by each unit, square footage, compared to the whole?
Somebody adding something, basically the overall condo complex is broken out by a square footage basis. But if somebody does something individually where they enhance the value of that condo after the fact of the apportionment, it'll go to that condominium.
Okay. Can you talk about taxation for condominiums?
Well, again, I think we discussed that a little while ago, but that's the condominiums have to be looked at as apartment buildings. So they're valued as such. And then the value on that whole apartment building is in a portion to each condominium owner on a square footage basis. And then they each receive their own tax bills.
Right. Is the tax rate the same for improved or non-improved land?
Tax rate is identical.
Okay. The question from the owner is that he heard you say that non-resident cannot use small claims, court for appeal. Is that correct? What can a non-resident do? I guess they need clarity.
That would just contact an attorney and file a certiorari.
Certiorari. Okay.
Yeah, you just get an attorney.
Okay. How does finishing a basement evaluation increase evaluation?
That increases the value. Obviously, if you're looking at two relatively identical homes and one has an unfinished basement, one has a finished basement, the one with the finished basement is worth more. Obviously not as valued as much as like the first floor or the upper living area, but there's a value placed upon it.
Okay. If parcel purchased years ago at much less than average value at the time, does that enter into the present land assessment?
No, not at all. We only try to go back a maximum of 3 years looking at sales.
So it's a general question, I guess, to us, how we're going to communicate back to the CPOA members. This recording will be made available to all members on our platform once we get it. We'll post that probably within the next few days. I think that answers your question on that. Okay. Application, denial of tax appeal. Okay, let's see. The denial of a tax appeal, the first level of the appeal does not provide any justification. For example, if 3 comparable are offered in support of denial, why is there no rationale provided as to why the information is inadequate?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what they're referring to. If they're talking the informal process, we'll sit down, and if you bring in 3 good comps, and they're better than the comps that we use, and are more applicable, we'll use them and make an adjustment. But when you have, and based on experience, when you sit down and have somebody come in for an informal hearing, and they bring in 3 comparable sales that are all coming in, are not even comparable sales. They're houses that are very poor condition, the lowest square, I mean, we see this a lot, bringing in the sales that occur at the lowest per square foot. They're not comparable to the house. They're much poorer condition, size differences, and so on. Obviously, in that scenario, we're going to go with our comparables. But if you've got 3 really good comps, we usually work with people.
Okay, thanks. I think you've answered this, but I'll ask it again. If a condo building has heat, but condo association rules only allow 6 months of occupancy, does that affect value?
I'd probably have to take a look at that, but I would say no because I don't think there'd be any impact at value because the prime season is the summer season anyhow, and that's when the majority of usage is.
Mhm.
And again, we're going on sales, so we're going to look at sales that have occurred. And if there's something in the market, let's say all of a sudden, to use that example, let's say all of a sudden that people did not want condos that you can only be locked in for 6 months. They wanted a 12-month usage. The market will bear that. You look at it and you'll see, oh, well, all of a sudden, well, the interest isn't there anymore for these 6-month condos. They want the 12-month condos, and you'll see a definite change in the value per square foot that they're selling for. So, I mean, all we do out of this office is we just read what's going on in the market.
Okay, everybody on the call, we just posted, Paul just posted the poll. So if you could all participate, that'd be great. Another question about comparables. Are they, for on the grounds, are they comparable only for the properties on the grounds, or do you go off grounds and make comparables also?
No, we stay within the institution. All sales are in the institution. You cannot take a Village of Mayville property and compare it to an institution property, or vice versa.
Okay.
And another example outside of that is a lakefront versus a non-lakefront property. We use sales. When I'm valuing a lakefront property, we're using lakefront comparables. We're not using off lakefront, non-lakefront parcels. It's just not apples to apples.
What house parameters will be used to adjust house value up or down from reference properties? Does that make sense? I don't.
Yeah, I know what they're asking. I mean, basically, it's a standard appraisal, URAR, residential appraisal report. You're making adjustments for size, for condition, for age, for number of baths, finished basement versus non-finished basement, land size adjustments. There's a litany going down through that you make adjustments off of.
Next question is, what if there's no properties that are comparable on the institution?
Well, there usually are, but there are 3 approaches to value. There's a cost approach to value, sales approach to value, and the income approach to value. And just assuming, just for argument's sake, that there is not a comparable anywhere, you would lean most heavily on the cost approach to value. Replacement cost new, less depreciation, plus the land value.
Okay. There's a property continuing on sale that looks like doesn't sell due to property taxes are, the property taxes are way too high based on the price of others. How can this be corrected so property can sell with a reasonable tax burden?
Again, it comes down to the valuation that's placed upon the property. Obviously, if it's not selling because the property taxes are too high, then the assessment's too high that's placed upon the property. So it needs to be brought to our attention. Excuse me. And we'll review it. And like when we go in to do this reval, we'll be looking at the listings out there too. What's on the market? What are the current listing prices? And take a look at all that. So if this property has been on the market for an extended period of time, the realtor is going to be lowering the price because they obviously want to sell the property. And at some point, they'll be able to. And again, we're just reading the market. It'll give us a good indication of what the property's worth.
Right. Okay, next questions. We have 2 adjoining lots. One, a partial lot. Main house is on a full lot. One room guest or partial, each assessed tax separately. Should we combine main house, lakefront, partial behind, main house, or not lakefront, advantage or to combine?
Send us the information. We'll have to take a look at it. I don't want to give you an answer without taking a look at it.
Okay. Putting aside lakefront or non-lakefront, does the location within the institution impact value? You know, and versus someplace else.
Again, it depends on the market. We'll be looking at the market, but those do properties that have a view of the lake, are they selling more for properties that are up that has a view of Route 394? I mean, again, that's the information that'll have to be looked at. But usually people pay more for a view than they do for a view of the lake versus a view of the road. Again, it all depends on that neighborhood and what the market is showing.
So I don't have any other questions. I think the last question that's still posted here, Paul, I think we asked and he responded to it. There are no other questions posted at this point. If that's the case, I would like to thank Kevin for his time and look forward to seeing him respond to the questions that were posted that he said he would get back to us on. And you have our email addresses so that you can respond to us. And so with that, I would like to say thank you again and release Kevin and go back to his daily work, the rest of his day. And I do have more time on this call that I'd like to talk to the property owners who rent about their summer and what that looks like for them. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Let me just add something. Anybody that has a question, feel free to pick up the phone and call us at the office. We're more than happy to talk to you and go over it with you.
Great. And your contact number is, could you give us a contact number and tell an email address?
716-753-2236.
And an email?
Email would be, I'd have all emails sent to Jeanette. I just got kicked out of my system here.
We'll be happy to, we'll get that email and we'll post it up as well on our platform so people.
Yeah, it's just departmentofassessment@gmail.com.
Great. Thank you very much, Kevin. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Thank you, Kevin.
Bye.
Okay. So I just want to thank everybody for being here, but I want to move to the second part of it. We have about 10 or 15 minutes, and depending on how much people want to spend on. I was talking about the power group and wanted to talk about their policies and how they dealt with renters this year, this summer. There were a few variations that people talked about, refunding the money of their tenants, moving the bookings to next year, partial refunds according to contract and or refund policies. So my questions were, how many people actually took part in these types of choices, or did they just stick to their contracts? And held people responsible for those kinds of monies booking for the season. And the other question for me was to ask people about how they determined rates for this summer. If people chose to come and make a booking. They talked about rates. I talked about rates and asked about rates and also durations. If people had concerns about how long people would stay for turnarounds for their properties and how much time there would be to clean up. So they're all questions I thought were valid questions for people to deal with. From a personal point of view, we gave people the ability to move forward to next year. All but two decided to do that. One actually couldn't come back in because they live in Canada. They couldn't even come down. So they asked for refunds. And for me, when I talk about this to a lot of the property owners who rent, I always talk about a couple of things. Always have a contract in place that states your policy clearly about how you want to deal with your tenants. Never do anything with just a verbal contract, because that only gets you into trouble moving forward. And I'd like to talk about how people start asking questions about how they feel about moving forward next year, and what does that look like for them. Um, so if you have questions about those things, now would be a good time to talk about it. So we can take questions in the same way we were taking questions with Kevin. So I'll just give you guys a few minutes to do that. The first power meeting that we're having is scheduled is with Joe Gerasi, and we're talking about rules and regulations, and we'll also be discussing security. It'll be on this platform. We were also going to be taught, that would be the 8th of July, and it'll be on this platform. I had posted that we were going to talk about the master plan and invite someone to talk about that. But I think I'm going to change gears on one of these events and talk about and ask Emily Morris to participate in what does the virtual Chautauqua look like moving forward. I think we're going to all have questions after this summer and see how people participate in this. But their plan initially was to go make a virtual platform next year, and it got accelerated because of COVID-19. But I'd like to understand what they're planning in the future. So I'm going to bring that to Emily for future conversation. Not a question, but an answer. We offered full, this is a participant giving what they did. We offered full refund or ability to book 2021. All tenants chose to have us hold their money until 2021. So it basically it'll inhibit your cash flow next year, but it maintained good client relationships. And it's, sometimes it's the cost of doing business. Next question. I refunded checks. Former owner is coming last week. Okay. So basically, they're talking about the same thing. They returned rent checks, and not sure about 2021. So there's a lot of concern about next year. Another question coming in, or comment. They followed CI's advice and refunded all monies, and did so. Most of our renters are older and aware of the good deal. I'm just trying to read it all. Yeah, I mean they're referring to giving back people's monies, and the difficulty in paying taxes now for the next year too. So there's lots of concern about cash flow and how people will attend to their cash needs now. Let's see. Okay. One comment is that they didn't have any tenants, so it was a perfect time to redo the kitchen with no outside construction. But the institution says it's not. Okay, so they're talking about not being able to do the construction because the institution is still asking them to not do construction during season. But that there's a process that John Shedd put in place that you can apply for a variance on that. You have to make application to the operations office, and they do a case-by-case basis on whether or not you can do construction work during the season. So I recommend you do that. Yep. For next year. The question is, how should we advertise for next year due to COVID-19. I think, like most of us, none of us have a crystal ball. None of us have the ability to say what's going to happen for next year in 2021. From my own bookings, we're mostly booked for 2021 already. And when that happens and how that happens is going to be, your guess is as good as mine. We stayed we're on the institution's accommodations platform. That's how we get a lot of bookings, but we also get a lot of bookings from repeats. So that's the way we're getting our bookings. We do get an occasional VRBO or Airbnb, but those are far and few between.
Richard, a couple of, just one other point there on that one, if you don't mind.
Sure.
People are going to have to probably have some plan in place for dealing with cleanliness and what their procedures are. So people are going to want to keep that in mind for next year as well, because I think most renters are going to want to know that you're in compliance with whatever the local and state regulations are. So I think that's going to add a level of diligence to what we traditionally have done. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about 2021 and moving forward.
Right. So that would have to do with turnovers. Typically we all turn over on Saturday, and we give our tenants about a 3 to 4 hour window. If you can comply with regulations on making sure that it's within that time frame, you may have to give your tenants a heads up. A question about taking into consideration virus cancellations, cancellation clause due to the virus. I'm not going to give legal advice on anything in a contract. You should talk to, if you have concerns, you should talk to attorneys and see how you might want to put something like that in. The other thing you should talk to, which the institution also talked about, is promoting your tenants to do renters insurance, to do vacation insurance, so that they're covered if something happens, and if it would cover it. I mean, I'm not sure if they would cover this type of the COVID-19 situation. I'm just not sure if it would.
Yeah, one other bit there is be prepared for some renters to want some clarification in terms of what policies will be in terms of refunds and things like that, because there are a handful of folks who don't have that and they aren't refunding all of the money because their contracts don't stipulate it. So be prepared. It's going to be a little bit of back and forth potentially with some renters going into 2021.
Mm-hmm. Another question is about occupancy taxes. I think I addressed this in a post on on the website on our platform. I posted both the tax form and the regulation. As far as I'm concerned, if I'm taking income in this year, I'm paying taxes on it, whether or not they're occupying or not. And that's what we're doing. That's the approach that I'm taking personally. As far as another question came up about what if we have no income? What if everybody canceled and I had to give back all the money? As far as I was talking to the tax department, you still have to file, but you put all zeros. You tell them that there was no income, and as a result, there was no tax collected. So but they still want you to file.
There's also the per bed tax, I think, as well, and that one is more.
That's the institution, right? That's
right. So that one probably you need to call. You have to call on that one most likely, see how they want you to handle it, because if you've taken the income but people actually haven't occupied your beds this year, but they'll occupy them next year, when do they want that booked?
Are you talking about CI, Chautauqua Institution, or are you talking about the county?
There's both. There's a county and Chautauqua, right, that have two different, there's the 5% tax. That is a 5% tax that the county is charging, but you've taken that income. So to your point earlier, you're booking it this year. The Chautauqua Institution per bed fee, that's one that may not actually be applied this year. You'll have to talk to them to see how they're interpreting that.
Okay, next question. Our cottage cleaners are from the local Amish community. We are very concerned about keeping them safe and healthy when they come in to clean the cottage. Thank you. Any recommendations for health-related renter insurance? I don't. I've not bought that type of insurance. I would call your local insurance provider locally and ask them for recommendations. They may be able to do that for you. Whoever you have your home insurance with, they have a broker that they can refer you to. And that was the last question that we got posted.
That's good. So, Richard, I just want to say thank you for hosting and leading our discussion today with Kevin Erkeland, the Chautauqua County Tax Assessor, also for going through some of these power questions as well. Thank you all for joining us today. Keep looking out for additional porch chats with community and other leaders, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Remember to join our platform at www.thecpoa.org. We have a lot of valuable information on that platform, and we really encourage you to become a member so that you can stay up to date on all the latest developments. So, Richard, thank you again.
You're welcome, Paul. Thank you for all your help. Appreciate it.